By the Yellow Springs Road, the entire underworld has been in an uproar for the past few days. A ghost couple living in the West had a daughter, and she's alive. Heavens, earth, ghosts, and gods, this is truly an earth-shattering event. Lord Yama flipped through every page of the Book of Life and Death. Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence took turns carrying me, feeding me with all their might. Granny Meng used to take me to the Yellow Springs Road to tumble and play. Even Emperor Fengdu himself glanced at me, struggling to speak. Do I have a connection with this little rice ball? From the dawn of creation until now, this is the first time such a thing has happened. A ghost woman giving birth to a living child. My mother looked at the smooth, white baby wailing on the bed, then lowered her head to touch her own flat belly. There was no doubt, it was truly her biological child. My mother tilted her head, racking her brain but still couldn't understand. I've been a ghost for over 800 years, how did I suddenly give birth to a living human like this? My father glanced at her, then quietly picked up a blue cloth and covered his head. My mother, well, she was a ghost. I was a human, so of course she had no milk to feed me. Perhaps she had been a ghost for too long. My mother had completely forgotten that babies need milk. Oh, it's father, why does it keep crying like that? This baby has such a big mouth. Look, darling, it even has tears to cry. Isn't that miraculous? Its mouth is really big. Try touching it, it's so soft, and warm too, its mouth. My father had barely touched my cheek twice when I clamped down on his finger, sucking so hard it made a grinding sound. And do living beings need to eat too? It seems so. Oh no, then it's over. My mother ran around in a panic. Where in the underworld would they find food for a living human? Out of love for me, my father carried the luggage, my mother held me, and our whole family moved to the east in the middle of the night. Because Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence were there, and only they frequently ascended to the mortal realm for work. My father mustered all his courage to block the path of the two great lords in the dead of night. Please, esteemed sirs, halt your steps. Lord White Impermanence smiled, revealing his long tongue. Oh, isn't it old Xiao? I heard you welcomed a daughter. Congratulations, congratulations. Lord Black Impermanence still had a grim expression, but a flicker of interest sparkled in his eyes. The Xiao family in the West giving birth to a living child, who wouldn't be startled? Even Lord Yama, upon hearing the news, couldn't believe it, lighting a lamp and poring over the Book of Life and Death all night. The result? My name wasn't in the death register, nor in the birth register, which meant I wasn't within his jurisdiction. Are the two of you lords preparing to ascend to the mortal realm for work again? My father asked, cupping his hands. Lord White Impermanence nodded, just going to snatch a few souls. There's no other way, this month's tasks are heavy, we're practically running every day, exhausted to the point of collapse. My father's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. Two lords, could you? Lord Black Impermanence froze. You dare ask us to do such a thing? Lord White Impermanence's face turned red. My father quickly waved his hands. For my daughter, it's all for my daughter. Absolutely not, Lord Black Impermanence roared. Absolutely not. Lord White Impermanence stamped his foot. The two turned and walked away. My father shouted after them, at most, let my daughter acknowledge you two as her godfathers. Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence paused, but still vanished without looking back. In the middle of the night, they returned and knocked on the door. My father opened it. Lord White Impermanence presented a bulging leather flask. Here's what you wanted. My father embraced it. It was still warm. Thank you very much. Just as he was about to close the door, Lord Black Impermanence stopped him. Lord White Impermanence squinted his eyes, smiling. Old Xiao, you must keep your word, you know. My father nodded vigorously like a chicken pecking at grain. Of course, in the future, my daughter will still have to rely on you two godfathers. Rely on us in the future? The two lords were startled. Yes, of course. As godfathers, you'll have to find food to raise her, won't you? Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence simultaneously pointed at the leather flask. Haven't we already given it? My father's face paled. You two lords don't possibly mean to exchange a flask of milk for a daughter, do you? Never. And so, I drank the milk provided by Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence for 3 whole years. Oh, they didn't produce it themselves. They just brought it back whenever they went to the mortal realm to snatch souls. Sometimes it was cow's milk, sometimes goat's milk. If they were unlucky, they'd even sneak into a wolf's den, chasing after a mother wolf to get a flask of milk, but they absolutely refused to listen to my father's suggestion of turning into women to beg for a bowl of human milk. Thus, for 3 years, I drank all kinds of animal milk, lacking only human milk. My mother was annoyed. Humans must drink human milk. Our daughter isn't drinking human milk, that's why she won't speak. My father, however, would carelessly wave me over. Yanner, sit down. I would immediately plop down. Yanner, wave your hand. I would wildly flail my arms. Yanner, what do your godfathers look like? I'd stick out my long tongue. My father was smug. See? She's so smart, she'll speak sooner or later. My parents didn't mind that I was a late talker, but my mother couldn't stand being sad about it. That day, my father decided to take me to Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence to ask for a bowl of human milk. Passing by the Nate Bridge, I met Emperor Fengdu for the first time. The blood-red spider lilies along both sides of the road bloomed brilliantly, blood-red, stretching endlessly. He leaned against the railing, gently lifting a single flower with his finger. I remembered tumbling and playing on the Yellow Springs Road hundreds of times, but I had never seen the spider lilies so beautiful. My father walked faster and faster. The figure in the distance gradually grew smaller. I anxious screamed, "Father, a beauty." My father followed my pointing finger. "You silly child, that's Emperor Fengdu. Don't you know he's a man?" That was the first time I ever opened my mouth to speak. Later, I learned that the distinguished lord, as beautiful as the spider lilies, possessed even greater power than King Yama himself. He was the ruler of the entire underworld, an existence that nameless beings like us could never touch in our lifetime. If he hadn't picked me up then, I would probably still believe all the rumors. On the Yellow Springs Road, Emperor Fengdu lifted me up to his face, looking directly at me. "What is this thing?" He wasn't asking a question so much as he was like someone who had found a strange object, curiously turning it over and over, almost shaking me upside down to see what was under my feet. "I am Xiao Yaojian's precious daughter, Xiao Yan. I am 5 years old, but speaking a long sentence is a new thing for me," I said, then paused, waiting for praise. To my surprise, Emperor Fengdu pursed his lips. "Your father's name is utterly provincial." I didn't understand what provincial meant, but I could tell from his tone that it wasn't a compliment. My face flushed with anger, and I struggled to escape his grasp. HMPH, no matter how handsome he was, he shouldn't badmouth my father. My struggles were useless. He flipped me over like my mother inspecting a newly sewn doll from top to bottom, even prying open my eyelids. Then he regretfully uttered a single sentence, "To raise you this big? What a waste." I didn't understand, only tilting my head to look at him. He sighed, then tossed me away and turned to leave. But I had been well cared for by my 2 godfathers. My plump body sank deep into a hole among the spider lilies. I was buried amidst the red flowers, struggling, but unable to get up. "Oh dear, is my little Yanner hurt?" Granny Meng's voice rang out. Granny Meng hugged me close. She ran, her skirt fluttering like a butterfly, and scooped me up. "Xiao Yan, that person just now was the master of the entire underworld, Emperor Fengdu, the most powerful person, not someone to be trifled with." "Emperor Fengdu," I repeated. "If you see him, you must stay far away." "Stay far away?" I nodded. "Good job. Tell Granny, what did he say to you?" I thought hard, my eyes wide, remembering only one sentence. He said raising me was a waste. Granny Meng froze, spun around, abandoning the line of souls waiting for her soup, and ran straight to my house. My mother trembled upon hearing this. My father's eyes rolled back in their sockets. Granny Meng slammed the table. "Go find Lord 7 and Lord 8, ask them to clarify." The whole family, holding me, ran as if the house was on fire. My 2 godfathers were happy to see me, but when they saw the 3 adults in a panic, their faces grew serious. Granny Meng recounted the story, and Lord 8's expression became stern. Lord 7, who usually smiled, also turned cold. The Emperor merely spoke casually, Granny Meng guessed. Lord 7 shook his head. "He absolutely does not joke." "Perhaps he was teasing a child?" my mother tried to guess. Everyone shook their heads in unison. Lord 8 frowned. "If he said it, there must be a reason." No one could figure it out. Lord 7 slapped his thigh. "Go ask Lord Yama." No sooner said than done, they hurried off like the wind. I had just picked up a round stone, intending to put it in my mouth and bite it. Lord 7 turned back, grabbed me, and threw me over his shoulder, the stone clattering to the ground. They went to King Qin Guang, the Yama king who governed our region. When I was born, he had already flipped through the book of life and death all night but couldn't find my name anywhere. "This is puzzling." King Qin Guang stroked his beard, pacing back and forth. "Even Lord Yama couldn't figure it out. We, your humble officials, are even more at a loss." Lord 7 impatiently followed. Lord 8 said bluntly. Or perhaps, your lordship, you should ask the emperor yourself. Lord Yama was startled. It's not that you can meet him just because you want to, precisely because he's difficult to meet, your lordship must go. Indeed, everyone chimed in. How would we mere little ghosts dare to face the emperor? Only your lordship has the status to do so. Yes, yes, everyone pleaded noisily. I meanwhile was playing at the door with ox head and horse face. Finally, everyone decided to let my father go meet the emperor. After all, I was his daughter, a legitimate reason, and as for status, a small ghost had no right to meet the emperor, but Lord Yama helped bridge the gap. So my father went with Lord Yama, returning the next night. I heard that after leaving the emperor, my father sat at the foot of the mountain for a day and a night. My mother anxiously rushed over. Her father, what did the emperor mean? My father waved his hand, smiling. Nothing, he just said that my daughter is so big but has no cultivation whatsoever. It's a bit of a waste. My mother's eyes widened. The child is only 5 years old and a human at that. What 5-year-old human cultivates? Even ghosts only start after 10. My father sighed. I said the same thing, but the emperor said the child is intelligent and shouldn't be wasted. My mother bloomed like a flower upon hearing him praise me. I knew it. My daughter is the smartest in the underworld. Even the emperor praised her. Everyone, rest assured. Only my father from then on would sigh whenever he saw me. I hated seeing my father sigh. Why are you sighing, father? Yanner, if one day you don't see your parents anymore, will you cry? Of course I'll cry so loudly. My father sighed again, wearily. Finally, one day, my father couldn't bear it anymore and discussed it with my mother. How about sending Yanner to the emperor's place? My mother panicked. Send her for what? He values the child. Let her be his disciple. Who knows, she might become a great talent in the future. But she's too young. She still needs Lord 7 and Lord 8 to bring her food and drink. She can't even be away from me for a day. It's decided then. My father didn't wait for my mother to finish her sentence before carrying me straight up Fengdu Mountain. No soul, no spirit, just an empty husk. No fate, no destiny. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate her. Raising her is just a waste of effort. Better to discard her and be done with it. The first half of what the emperor said I didn't understand, but the second half I understood all too clearly. He intended for my father to throw me away. I was so angry I screamed, HMPH, you already threw me once, you can't throw me again? Last time, he threw me into the spider lilies, and I tumbled head over heels. Luckily, it didn't hurt. This time, the mountain is full of sharp rocks. If you throw me, my bottom will break. I threw you. The emperor's face went blank. Yes. He bent down to look at me. While we were staring at each other, my father disappeared. The emperor poked my cheek. What? Your father ran away, he doesn't want you anymore. I turned my head, my father was truly gone. Huh, where's father? I turned back to ask the emperor. He too had vanished. Huh, where's the emperor? The vast mountain was left with only mist. I remembered my father's words when we came up here. Yanner, father is sending you to the mountain for a few days. There are countless delicious things there. Once you're tired of eating, father will come pick you up. I looked up at the majestic, magnificent palace on the mountain. All delicious food in there, so I'll stay for a few days then. I put my small bag on my back and began to climb over the rocks. The higher I went, the fiercer the wind became. I climbed from morning until night, completely exhausted. At the palace gates, I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened by itself, and a pair of black shoes with golden cloud embroidery appeared before my eyes. I looked up. The emperor's face was blindingly handsome. He squatted with his arms crossed, looking at me with confusion. Little rice ball, you have a connection with me again? I didn't care about any connection. I just wanted to know, Emperor, what are we eating tonight? I had been on Fengdu Mountain for a very long time before the emperor finally told me that I was the only person who had ever been able to climb into the Fengdu Palace without his permission. If that was the case, why didn't he just chase me away earlier? If he didn't want me in the palace, he should have just driven me off. As the majestic Emperor Fengdu, master of the underworld, chasing away a 5-year-old child should have been as easy as flicking dust from his fingertips. Why did he let me stay? Every night I would roll around looking for my mother, crying and making a commotion all night long. The emperor rested his chin in his hand, saying seriously, because I cannot calculate where this karmic entanglement between you and me truly comes from. I recalled all the years he had tormented me in countless ways and couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. Or perhaps it's just the karma I brought upon myself. At 5 years old, I climbed half the mountain by myself, all for a bite to eat. Who would have thought that the first thing I'd do upon entering Fengdu would be to practice bigu, abstaining from grains? I cried until my stomach ached, filled with regret. While I was secretly longing for delicious food, the icy voice of Xuan Feng rang out from behind me. You too are truly idle. Xuan Feng, an immortal dwelling in the underworld, was the immortal master brought by the emperor to teach me. When I was 7, the emperor carried me down from his bed for the very last time, his voice extremely cold. From today onwards, you must sleep alone. Even if you cry to shake heaven and earth, it will be useless. I clung to his door, crying. Every other time, he would sigh and then open the door. This time, no matter how much I screamed until my voice was hoarse, he didn't soften, only tossing back a single sentence. Men and women should not touch each other intimately. I asked, what is man? What is woman? Is there a house that big? The emperor hated that I was illiterate but lacked the patience to teach me himself. Just then, Xuan Feng arrived to play chess, drank the tea I poured, and was trapped by the emperor, thus becoming my master. I saw my master's face was completely black and remembered that I had forgotten to go to class that morning. The emperor, from behind me, gently tugged my sleeve, whispering, Master, he's angry now, be quiet, he saw you. Because I constantly skipped class, my master finally decided on a severe punishment. I was hit 3 times on the palm and had to copy the heart-calming mantra 100 times. I rolled up my sleeves, copying while grumbling about the emperor. The heart-calming mantra was something the emperor had said a few lines of many years ago. He spoke a few lines, and his descendants, upon memorizing it, would feel like spitting blood. I, upon copying it, felt like my tendons were being pulled from my hands. I deliberately wrote very slowly because it was almost noon. Even if I hadn't finished copying, the emperor would still come to pick me up for a dip in the cold pond and a waterfall bath. Sure enough, the emperor arrived exactly on time to pick me up. I followed him, having only copied it 3 times. My master told me I had to finish copying that night and submit it the next morning. I gloomily glanced at the emperor, signaling him to save me. I think copying this much is enough. Copying more is useless, the emperor said. Master, it's hard to understand, but why can't she stay up late tonight? Staying up late will prevent her from growing tall. With that, the emperor pulled me away. My master stamped his foot, pointing at our backs and scolding, Fen Ying, she's almost up to your chest. What more height could she possibly gain? I think you're just spoiling her. For someone like you to constantly shield her like this, she'll never become a proper student even if she studies her whole life. The emperor was startled, immediately reaching out to measure my height against his head. Good, she only reaches my chest. I touched my nose, thinking that it was true. After so many years of studying, I only knew half of everything. Perhaps I'd never truly learn anything profound in my lifetime. But the emperor didn't care. He said, it's fine, knowing how to read is enough. With the emperor, I never felt any academic pressure. At first, I resented the emperor throwing me into the cold pond, but after a few dips, I felt my body become light, and practicing bigu was no longer too difficult. Just breathing, I could feel a stream of energy entering my body. Though small, I wasn't foolish. I knew the emperor wasn't trying to harm me. After all, he wouldn't let me freeze to death. Whenever I couldn't bear it, he would pull me out in time. He would use magic to dry my clothes, and when I cried out of fear, he would hold me close. His sleeves were always wide enough to completely envelop a tiny child like me. Nestled in his arms, I inhaled his cool, fresh scent, greedily clinging to that endless warmth. It was then that I also realized the person holding me was as warm as I was. That's why in my early days on Fengdu, no matter how much I missed my parents, as long as the emperor hugged me, I would stop crying and fall asleep immediately. Later, with the men and women should not touch intimately rule, the emperor no longer hugged me. I longed for warmth. He then tossed me a huge, warm jade stone. By the time I emerged from the cold pond, it was already past noon. The emperor, as always, stood at the head of the bridge, his figure tall and straight, waiting from a distance. From the age of 12, he no longer came close to the pond's edge. I was bored to death, and pleading was useless. The mountains were rugged, clouds drifted about, his sleeves billowed in the wind, and his long hair gently fluttered. Clearly the ruler of the underworld, awe-inspiring in all directions, yet his demeanor was as radiant as the moon, captivatingly beautiful. Seeing me approach, he slowly smiled. Yanner, in 2 days you'll be 20. My heart felt as warm as a spring breeze blowing through the underworld. 20 was a grand birthday, a milestone of maturity for a woman. That's right, what will you give me for my birthday this year? I scurried over, remembering the rare gifts he gave me every year. The emperor took my hand, cupping it in his palm, and soon my hand was warm. What gift? I'm sending you home. With that, he tapped my head and turned to leave. I was so happy that I packed up everything in my room. Besides my own belongings, there were countless fruits I had saved for my parents over the past 10-odd years. Since the emperor had said he would take me home, he certainly wouldn't break his promise. He had never broken a promise before. You're going home in 2 days, why are you dismantling your bed today? The emperor passed by the door, looking at me helplessly. Oh, I still have to sleep 2 more nights. I remade my bed, then ran to plead, Emperor, can I go home 1 day early? I want to celebrate my birthday with my parents. I'm turning 20 after all. The emperor shook his head. You must dip in the cold pond after noon before you can leave. I was stunned. Why? That's half a day of my birthday gone. You can't skip even 1 day of the cold pond, he advised. If you miss the last day, then the effort of the past 10-odd years will be wasted, and you'll have to dip for the rest of your life. I was terrified. 1, I was finally escaping the fate of dipping in the cold pond, and 2, it turned out that missing 1 day meant compensating for an entire lifetime. On my birthday, the emperor requested leave for me. My master, knowing it was my birthday, not only wasn't angry but even gave me a jade bracelet. I could tell just by looking at it that my master had made a fortune this year. The emperor was originally by my side, checking my belongings, when suddenly, the cry of a white crane echoed from outside the courtyard. The emperor was startled and dropped my jade bracelet. The emperor seemed not to hear anything, leaving behind an afterimage as he vanished. Did something happen? I had never seen him leave in such a hurry. The white cranes of the underworld had never cried so mournfully before. I ran all over the courtyard but found nothing unusual. Never mind, the emperor had never been late for noon before. But the closer it got to noon, the more anxious I became. I couldn't see him anywhere. He was never late for my cold pond ritual. I was so anxious that I remembered the way myself and decided to go alone. Anyway, going early would still get me there on time. The path was difficult, but since I left early, I arrived just in time. This was my last dip in the cold pond in this lifetime, yet my heart was filled with unease. Where had the emperor gone? Was something urgent happening? I finished my dip and climbed ashore, but the pond's edge was still empty. No one was there to warm my hands. The emperor hadn't returned. I ran back to the main palace, and before I could even search for him, he descended from the clouds. Emperor, you're back? As the clouds dispersed, I saw him holding a woman in purple robes in his arms. She was a wandering soul. I had played by the Nahe Bridge since childhood, so what wandering soul hadn't I seen? But this one was on the verge of dissipating. The emperor walked carefully, step by step, as if afraid she would vanish. His gaze had never looked at me like that before. I choked. Yanner, quickly bring your soul-gathering cauldron. I ran to get it immediately. It was a toy he had given me. If he needed it now, I would give it. But today, he was too worried, something he had never been with me. In my eyes, he was always indifferent, gentle, or sometimes critical. Thinking of how he looked at that woman differently from how he looked at me, my heart ached. I went to him, and he gathered her soul into the cauldron. Emperor, who is she? He didn't answer, only staring distractedly at the soul-gathering cauldron. In a fit of anger, I called him by his true name, Fen Ying. He looked at me with a tenderness I had never seen before. My heart pounded, and I recoiled. Emperor, Yanner has been rude. From now on, don't call me by my true name. His face turned cold again. Before, I had called him that all the time, and he never minded. I grew even angrier. Why did I need to know who she was? I still had to go home. But the emperor seemed to have forgotten about that. He took the soul-gathering cauldron and left. I swallowed my anger, not calling him back. Only after he left did I regret it. I was immortal. How would I get home without him? The thought brought tears to my eyes. Today was my big day, yet I was tired, cried, and fell asleep without knowing when. I woke up to find myself in my small bed at home. Old wood, a tiny room full of hanging toys. This was my room, I was home. Emperor, did you bring me back? The emperor sat by the window, reading a book, and said very seriously, No, you sleepwalked and dragged me to your house. Then I'm truly amazing. My parents ran in, and I was so happy I cried. My parents were much shorter than me. Everyone rushed to praise my height and beauty. Lord Black and Lord White Impermanence and Granny Meng also came to congratulate me. When the emperor stepped out, everyone knelt, but he waved his hand. Today is Yanner's coming-of-age ceremony. She is the most important. no need for excessive formalities. I was 20 years old and had the most beautiful birthday of my life. I thought that was my gift. Who would have thought that upon returning to Fengdu, he would give me a bone flute? With this flute, you can summon ghost emissaries. All of the underworld can be commanded. Even Lord Yama? Yes, I assure you, you're more powerful than Lord Yama. I don't like it. I like it. I immediately hid the flute on my person, instantly forgiving him for not letting me sleep that night. I suddenly remembered the woman in purple robes. How is she doing? She's still nurturing her soul in the cauldron. Once her soul is complete, she'll be handed over to Granny Meng for reincarnation. Huh, you're not keeping her? Why would I keep her? I thought you valued her. The Emperor was momentarily stunned, then sighed. The white crane mistook someone else, and I almost did too. Only after cleansing her mortal essence at the spiritual spring did I realize she wasn't the one I was waiting for. So that was it. I knew he waited for an old acquaintance every Kixie festival. It turned out that old acquaintance was a woman. I remembered him calling out, "Newer," then. That must be her name. I was angry. It should have just been curiosity, but now I felt a pang of sadness. I slammed the door shut and called him a fool. Why must you wait for such a person? I was jealous. That night, Fengdu was struck by thunder and lightning all night, an extremely rare occurrence. I had never seen real thunder and lightning before, so I was scared to death. I called out to the Emperor, but there was no answer. I blew the bone flute, but no ghost emissary appeared. I was so panicked I almost fainted. Lightning flashed, illuminating the entire room, and I trembled with fear. I wanted to open the door, but it was sealed by a barrier. So were the windows. As lightning struck, my body suddenly became covered in talismans, which then vanished when the lightning disappeared. I remembered seeing identical talismans in the Emperor's handwriting. Could the lightning be striking me? My master said that those who defy the Heavenly Dao would be struck down by divine lightning. I recalled the Emperor's words from years ago: no soul, no spirit, just an empty husk. No fate, no destiny. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate her. Raising her is just a waste of effort. Better to discard her. So that was why my father brought me to Fengdu. I was originally someone the Heavenly Dao could not tolerate. The thunder and lightning raged all night. My room was fine. It must have been the Emperor protecting me. He knew I would be struck by lightning. Emperor, please open the door? I couldn't believe such a huge commotion wouldn't wake him. I knocked a few more times, and finally the door opened. The Emperor yawned, crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe, his eyes half closed, muttering, "No early class today, no need to wake up in a hurry." Emperor, I looked at his pale face, utterly devoid of color, clearly not having slept much. HMPH, that thunder and lightning last night, was it targeting me? The Emperor opened his eyes, looked down at me, and chuckled softly. Yanner, you're overthinking it. How much power do you have for heaven to bother targeting you? His voice was so weak, it lacked any strength, and his forehead was covered in sweat. If it wasn't for me, why would you have placed a barrier around my room? Thunder and lightning are blind. I was afraid it might strike you by mistake. If you were just afraid of a mistaken strike, a barrier would have been enough. So why did you draw so many talismans on my body? The Emperor froze, silently staring at me for a very long time without answering. I looked up at him, seeing a complex mix of emotions in his eyes that I couldn't comprehend: joy, fear, doubt, yet also a sense of confirmation. Emperor, I raised my hand in front of his eyes, but he seized it tightly. Are these the talismans you spoke of? The Emperor raised his hand, and a sample talisman materialized before us. I nodded. Yes, didn't you draw them on me? A smile spread across his eyes, and I clearly saw a shimmering glint there. Yes, I drew them. From the age of 7 until now, the Emperor had never hugged me like this again. Yet at this moment, he held me tightly to his chest, making my heart constrict. I felt his embrace was a bit too strong, and I intended to push him away, but then I instinctively leaned into his chest. Hearing his heart pound, my face flushed. He continuously stroked my head, softly saying, "It truly is you." Just as I was about to ask who "you" was, the sound of falling teacups and dishes suddenly echoed from behind me. Xiao Feng, clad in white robes, stood right beneath the tree. It turned out Xiao Feng had brought medicine. It was then that I realized the Emperor had endured an entire night of heavenly lightning for me. The divine lightning struck again and again, as if intent on shattering me into dust. The Emperor told me to go make tea, but worried about his health, I hid behind the door to eavesdrop. "I know your nature," Xiao Feng said. "You won't abandon her once you've raised her. But you saw last night's heavenly punishment. It was 100 times more ferocious than we predicted. Before he could finish, the emperor retorted, "So what? This was just the first time, and the Heavenly Dao has already struck you to such an extent? That was due to my carelessness." I heard Xuan Feng sigh, saying helplessly, "I just don't understand when exactly you developed those feelings for her." My heart lurched. My master was talking about those feelings between the emperor and me. My mind was filled only with the image of the emperor holding me moments ago, my face burning as if it would smoke. Why bother with such matters? But you raised her with your own hands. How could you be like that, like a beast? The words Xuan Feng couldn't utter, the emperor said very calmly. I don't know how long they talked. I just sat dazed by the door until Xuan Feng pushed it open and walked out. He looked at me, his eyes full of resignation. "Master." Xuan Feng didn't answer, merely flicking his sleeve and leaving. The emperor followed, leaning against the doorframe, looking at me with a smile. "The blood-red spider lilies have bloomed. Shall we go see them? I'll carry you." The blood-red spider lilies had never withered. Perhaps I had been dazed for too long, as the emperor suddenly scooped me up into his arms. He supported my shoulder with one hand, gently tucking stray strands of hair behind my ear with the other, softly saying, "Consider it accompanying me on a journey." The emperor held my hand, his palm strangely warm. I pursed my lips and smiled. Since I was 7, he had always held my wrist through his sleeve, never directly holding my hand like this. As if he had eyes in the back of his head, he immediately asked, "What are you smiling about?" A surge of emotion rose within me. I desperately wanted to ask him what kind of feelings he truly had for me. Looking at his long, silken hair, his pale, rosy ears, even the hair tie fluttering with his steps, everything was captivatingly beautiful. I almost blurted it out, but when he turned to look at me, I swallowed the words. In his eyes, I understood everything. By the Yellow Springs Road, the sea of blood-red spider lilies stretched endlessly. The emperor and I walked hand in hand. I clearly saw Granny Meng on the Nate Bridge, having forgotten even to ladle her soup. I chuckled softly and asked the emperor, "Emperor, do you still remember 15 years ago when you stood here in a daze, and I was tumbling by the roadside?" I had tumbled so much I crushed a whole patch of flowers before he picked me up. "I remember you trampled an entire field of flowers. Were you waiting for that person that day too?" After asking, my heart pounded. I had once heard that Emperor Fengdu waited for an old acquaintance year after year. The emperor squeezed my cheek, then frankly lifted my chin, looking directly into my eyes. "Yes, she promised me she would return to admire the blooming spider lilies with me." My heart was in turmoil as I listened, wanting to ask about their relationship, but my throat tightened. The emperor chuckled as if he could read my thoughts. "Give me your hand." I didn't understand but still offered it. His palm was scorching hot and the talismans on my body reappeared. This is an inseparable talisman. Once inscribed, it ensures that through countless lives you will never leave or abandon me. Even through 10,000 cycles of reincarnation, it will not fade. You have finally returned, Sunyuo. A brilliant halo swirled around me, dazzling like flowing light. Before me was still the emperor, yet he appeared in different forms. Beneath the tree, he held a flower, smiling, his head tilted, his beauty captivating the world. One moment he was majestic and inviolable, the next he leaned against the moon, gently relaxed. I remembered our old saying, "On the Yellow Springs Road, when the blood-red spider lilies bloom, it is the most beautiful sight in the world." But why did the flowers never bloom? The spider lilies bloom for 1,000 years, then wither for 1,000 years. To bloom again, one must wait another 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Who could possibly wait that long, Fen Ying? As the halo faded, my mind suddenly cleared. Looking at the emperor before me, I was so shaken I could barely control myself. I tried to suppress the overwhelming surge of memory and softly asked, "Fen Ying, did you truly wait for me for 1,000 years?" His answer was an embrace and a kiss, carrying a cool, fresh scent, utterly without hesitation. Side story 1, Sunyu asterisk. I'm truly fed up. The moment I made a promise to him, the Heavenly Dao immediately pursued and struck me down, never allowing it. Cannot tolerate her, my foot. If I weren't afraid of implicating my man, I wouldn't have given in so easily. It was so difficult to figure out a way to reincarnate, overcoming countless obstacles, just to secretly return as Xiao Yan. That crazy Heavenly Dao once again imposed on me the fate of intolerance, and wants to strike me down again. Unfortunately, this round is decided by my man. But before he settles scores with the Heavenly Dao, I have a small debt I want to clarify. HMPH, Why does Emperor Lord keep insisting I call him by his name? Calling him, your lordship, feels distant between us, but calling him by his name makes me shy. The more I think about it, the angrier I get, determined not to call him by his name again. Cough cough asterisk that night, I couldn't resist, calling his name all night long. Side story 2, The Emperor. A tiny rice ball rolled around at my feet, also someone the Heavenly Dao could not tolerate. Why did she have to suffer so much? I hadn't intended to pay attention, but then I suddenly wondered, when my little Newer was young, how did she live? Not being tolerated by the Heavenly Dao must have been very difficult. A sudden pang of compassion moved me, and I picked up the rice ball. Looking into its eyes, I almost thought Newer had returned. I checked very carefully, but there were no marks I had left on her. It's not her. Granny Meng always watches this place. What will become of this child? It's up to fate. When she crawled alone to my palace gate, I was truly astonished. To prevent others from ascending the mountain, I personally severed all other opportunities, leaving only a single path of karmic connection in case Sun Yu returned. Yet, this child managed to pass through that path. Could she be Sun Yu? Unfortunately, she had no fate, no destiny. I couldn't calculate it. The older she grew, the more she resembled Sun Yu from her words to her actions. I knew she wasn't, yet I remained very conflicted. Until the day she came of age, and the Heavenly Dao began to target her, the inseparable talisman on her body suddenly appeared. The conflict in my heart finally had an answer. Xu Wenfeng said, the first time the Heavenly Dao struck her, it was with myriad divine lightning, clearly showing its resolve to destroy her. He told me not to take risks. I also thought the first time wouldn't be that powerful, but I was wrong. She is Sun Yu. The heavenly punishment for her was no longer the first time. The Heavenly Dao had used all its might, but what if the Heavenly Dao was stronger than before? I waited for her for 1,000 years, endured for 1,000 years, plotted for 1,000 years. Even if I had to defy the Heavenly Dao, then so be it. I will protect her. This is the entire story of this life, this world.